Access control systems are one of those nifty, neat pieces of technology that are available for consultants to install, but too few installers or IT professionals think about actually adding them into their little tool bag of things that they can sell their client. So access control systems, whenever we're talking about access control systems, we're talking about systems that allow physical access to things like doors. So you can either swipe some kind of key card, or you can use some kind of biometric, either a fingerprint or a face scan, in order to gain access to a doorway. So this is used in order to get into buildings, in order to get into server rooms, basically in order to secure any kind of environment. Now back in the day, back in the nasty old days of, I don't know, 1999, things like access control systems were very expensive, and they were out of the ability of many people to use. Basically, you probably could not afford to actually go out and install these things very easily for your clients. Again, with all technology, price comes down, ease of use. It gets a lot easier to use, and it gets a lot easier to install. So nowadays, access control systems are about dirt simple to install. They're actually relatively inexpensive from your side, and you can get a decent profit margin if you decide to go out there and start installing them for your clients. So it's pretty easy. Now, if you're thinking about installing access control systems, basically there's the equipment that I'm going to show you today. Just give you a little preview of the equipment. This is the stuff that I'm going to be showing you today. So this is a scanner, this is a reader, this is the control unit, these are buttons and sensors and all that. But basically, if you're going to be installing these access control systems, what you have to understand is there's some basic equipment that you have to buy and install. You've got your sensors, whether they're RFID sensors or whether they're biometric sensors. They connect back into a controller unit. The controller is basically the brain of the system. And then that controller unit then connects to locks. Now, the important thing to understand with these locks, whenever people are thinking about access control systems, they get a little scared of it because they think that a lot of electricity is involved. Anytime a lot of electricity is involved, people get scared and they don't want to play with it. Well, the cool thing with these access control systems is they're actually all run off of 12-volt DC energy. So basically, I wouldn't suggest you do it, but you could take it and put it to your tongue and it would hurt like hell, but that's about it. You're not dealing with high voltage when you're dealing with these access control systems, so basically any schmuck off the street can actually install these. From a technical standpoint, they're very easy to install, they're very easy to configure, they're very easy to manage. From a legalistic standpoint, from what I understand, so I went off, so the reason I can show you this particular unit today is I went off and I did a field trip to a ZK Access a couple of months ago, and when I was talking to them about how all this stuff gets installed, basically what they said is how this normally gets installed in the real world is you have technicians that go out and they install and configure the controllers, they install the sensors, they run the wire, and then basically you go out and you hire a locksmith to actually put in the lock. So one of the things, again, whenever you're talking about technology, there is the technical aspect that any jackass can do, and then there are the legal requirements. And so the only thing with these systems that you do have to keep in mind is there are some legal requirements in different areas of the world, you know, ordinances basically saying what should happen if the fire alarm goes off, should doors automatically open, or any of that kind of stuff. That's one thing where you may have to hire a locksmith, you may have to partner with somebody like a locksmith, but the rest of the equipment, basically, you can go out, you can buy, you can install, and then you have you pay the locksmith about $300 just so they certify everything is done how it's supposed to be done, and it's all pretty good. So that's something to be thinking about with if you're thinking about going out and doing these access control systems. Now, let's go over to the computer for 1 second, just so I can kind of show you what we're going to be looking at today. So again, there's a lot of manufacturers out there. There are a lot of vendors out there for these type of access control systems. The reason I'm showing you ZK Access is they are people that I know. I've done a field trip. They do not sponsor me. FCC compliance. They have not paid me a dime. I would really like them to pay me a dime, but they have not paid me a dime. I just simply have been up to their New Jersey offices, and they're really good folks, and they have let me play with their equipment, and so they gave me free equipment to play with, so I decided to show that to you today. But the cool thing with ZK Access is you can buy one of these demo units from them. So if you're interested in playing with access control systems, if you're thinking about getting involved with this, one of the nice things with ZK Access is you can buy this demo kit that I'm going to show you, and it has the controller, and it has the sensors, and it has all the little bobbles so that you can play around with it and test it and decide if it's something that you actually want to be using. So that's one good thing with the demo kit that I'm showing you. Because one of the problems you get into in the real world of technology, like especially if you go out and you want to install surveillance systems, is in order to install a surveillance system, you need cameras, and you need a DVR or an NVR and a power supply. You need all this stuff, right? But very few people actually sell you like the whole thing so that you can learn it. You know, you're going out there and you're buying a camera, and then you find out the camera needs a power supply, but nope, not the power supply you bought. It needs a different power supply, and then you're doing all this stuff. So the nice thing with this little demo kit is you can buy this, learn all the stuff, and then go from there. But let's go over to the demo kit so I can kind of show you what's going on with access control systems. So if you are interested in getting involved with access control systems, again, you have a basic idea of what's happening. So this is the demo kit. Obviously, this is not what it would look like in the real world. This is all the equipment that you would use, but basically this is just set up so that you can play with it. So these represent doors. So these are doors. Imagine these are doors to your facility. These are the sensors that allow access to the door. So basically, if you scan your finger or if you scan your card, if you're accepted, this will turn blue, and this will signify that the door has opened. Now, what actually happens here? So here, right now, if I scan and it detects my card, and it's the right card, it turns on a light. What would happen in the real world is it would actually send electricity to open the door lock so that I could get through. So basically, these represent the doors. These are the sensors. This is what is called the controller. So for all intents and purposes, this is the server of the system. So this actually has a web-based GUI. You can go in and configure access for different cards or different fingerprints. Unfortunately, with the systems that I currently have, I can't demo that with you guys live online. But basically understand that this is a server that allows everything to happen. You configure this through a web GUI. It picks up an IP address, and you go in there and you configure it like you would like any modern router or anything like that. Then down here we have different types of buttons and sensors. So with access control systems, you know, a lot of times if you're trying to walk out of a building, you can't simply walk out the door. You have to do something like push a button in order to get out the door. And so they have a couple of different buttons down here just to give you an idea of what's going on. So this is a no-touch button. So when I just run my hand over it, you will see the light turns blue, so this allows me to leave the building. Or this is an actual push button. And when I push that, again, the light turns blue, so that means I could leave out through this door. So this is the basic stuff that is going on here. They've also got little door sensors and auxiliary inputs that you can play with, but I'm not going to be showing you that today. So the important thing to understand, again, so we've got the doors. So the doors have locks. Then we've got the sensors. The sensors communicate back with the controller to say whether or not somebody should get in or out of the door. And then we have the little buttons here, so somebody can actually push on the button or hover over it, and that will unlock the door for you. And that's basically all you have with these systems. So again, this is a pretty simple thing. A lot of times when people talk about access control systems, they think it's very, very complicated and like, oh no, I don't know how I can do it. But it's really, this is all we're talking about. So now with a system like this, so this particular system, again, whenever you buy one of these systems, it's going to be limited to how many devices or how many doors it can actually work with. So this one, down here, if we look at it, has lock 1 through lock 4. So this can support up to 4 locks. So basically this can support up to 4 doors. It can support up to 4 buttons. I think it's 4 buttons. 4 buttons. So buttons are these things here, and it can support up to 4 readers. So whenever you're buying one of these things, that's one of the things you should look at. Some of them support 1 reader and 1 door. Some support 10 readers and 10 doors. So whenever you're going to be buying one of these things, that is something to think about. But one of the interesting parts that you should keep in mind is it also has auxiliary both in and output. Now, this is something important when you're thinking about things like ordinances, so rules when you install equipment like this. Again, what happens when the smoke alarms in a building go off? Now, if the smoke alarms in a building go off, you don't want your doors to be locked, and you don't want people to have to worry about pulling out key cards. Because if all your doors are locked, and there's a fire in the building, and then everybody runs up to the door, and they're losing their mind, so they don't think about using their key card, and they all die of smoke inhalation, somebody is going to get the bejesus sued out of them and most likely go to jail. So whenever the smoke alarms or the fire alarms go off, you want all the doors to unlock in the building so people can get out and they don't die, right? Well, that's what's nice with these auxiliary ports, is you can actually have them connected to the smart smoke alarms, to the fire alarms, to whatever else. When they receive a signal from that equipment, it will then do things like unlock the doors. So basically, that's some of the cool things that are done with this. So basically, this is, you know, an access control system for all intents and purposes. Again, whenever you're talking about actually being able to access one of these systems, you can either use what are called RFID cards or RFID fobs, or you can use biometrics. Now, when you're looking at these sensors, there's a zillion different sensors out there nowadays. These particular sensors that they're showing off here do both fingerprint scanning or the RFID. So this is a nice thing. So like, if you're going to be setting this up for an office and you want most of the employees to just be able to use biometrics, you can have it so they can use their fingers. But if you want to give guest access, instead of actually having to add somebody to the system, you can just have like a guest RFID card and they can use that to access the system. So that's some of the things that you can be thinking about. Now, with these systems, again, there's a lot of configurations. Unfortunately, I was going to show you some of the configurations, but I couldn't get the system to work properly in order to show you the configurations. But there's a lot of configurations you can do for physical security. Again, one of the problems that I see in the real world of technology is everybody's worried about, ow. Sorry, got an eyelash in my eye. That hurts. Again, live TV, as I say. Anyways, one of the problems with security in the real world, as I sit here as a pirate, security in the real world is everybody's worried about viruses, everybody's worried about malware, everybody's worried about Chinese hackers parachuting in or whatever, right? They're all worried about that kind of stuff. But one of the things like security people or IT security people so rarely really think about is physical security. Physical security is probably the number one most important thing they should be worried about, and it's usually about the bottom of their list. Again, everybody's worried about viruses. You know, what if a virus gets into a computer? What if a hacker compromises a computer? Well, I know, coming from Baltimore, actually having done consulting in Baltimore, what happens if some crackhead walks into your building and literally walks out with the server? It happens, right? You know? And so that is where things like physical security can really help. Because these systems are inexpensive. I think, don't quote me, don't legalistic me, but I think a system like this would be like $800 your cost. So I think you can get like 4 locks, 4 sensors, and a controller for somewhere around $800. Again, don't legalistic me on that. But basically, it's not that expensive a cost. So you have to think, if you really want to secure your facility, the more places you have these access control locks, the more secure you make the facility. You know, you put these locks on the server room. You put these locks on the front door. You put these locks in the conference rooms. You put these locks in between areas when people move throughout the building, and you get greater security. I mean, you really have to think about that. Should the average secretary be able to get into your server room? Should the average secretary be able to get into other areas? Should a warehouse worker be able to get into the executive suites? I would say no. The more you can secure people down, you can compartmentalize them into their own little areas, the less concern you have about security problems. Again, right now, overall violent crime in the United States has been going down pretty continuously since about 1990, 1991. But the one place that violent crime has been increasing is workplace violence. Now again, I know I got a lot of populists out there, I got a lot of hippies. There's a lot of reasons workplace violence is going up. And again, I'm not getting moral, I'm not getting ethical, I'm not getting in the middle of that. But one of the ways you can prevent mass workplace violence is by implementing a decent physical security procedure. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if somebody has a shotgun and they're walking around shooting people, if you can lock them into a smaller area, you know, I mean, it's just plain to say, it's better that they only shoot 5 people versus shooting 25 people, right? If you have access control systems throughout your building, you can secure them. So, I don't know, maybe they're only shooting people in the warehouse area, and when they go to open the door to get into the executive suite or somewhere else, basically the physical locks don't allow that to happen. So this is an important thing to be thinking about. And again, like I say, with this stuff is very easy to configure. This stuff is very easy to set up. Again, you know, it's good old-fashioned running cabling. Frankly, running cabling to these things, to the controller, is the biggest pain in the butt here. But, you know, this is anything any high school dropout can do. From a technical standpoint, it's very easy to do. From a financial standpoint, this is actually surprisingly affordable now. Again, the only legalistic thing you might have to run into is you might have to partner with a locksmith in order to actually put in those automatic locks and make sure it's configured properly. Otherwise, it's some pretty good stuff. So basically, like I say, this is ZK Access's system. Again, ZK Access hasn't paid me a dime. They just allow me to play with the stuff, so I might as well, you know, put it out their brand name out there. But it's all pretty good stuff. It's all pretty fun to play with. And again, like I say, they have this demo unit. I think if you become one of their partners, it's like $300. So it's well worth the money just to get and play with, because like I say, this can actually be configured through a GUI interface. And you think about it, you know, 4 sensors, this can support up to 4 sensors and 4 locks. And you think, I mean, that's useful for most of the small businesses out there. If you can buy this, let's say for $800, you can very easily install it for $3,000 to $4,000 and walk out, you know, with a nice $2,000 or $3,000 profit for, you know, a day's worth of work. And again, that's what I'm talking about as a computer guy. So again, this is the ZK Access stuff. Something to think about, something for you guys. Oh, to think about in the real world of technology. And again, this, you know, everybody's worried about Windows computers and Linux servers and all that, but again, what I really want you guys to be thinking about is, in the modern world of technology, what are these other devices, what are these other systems that you can install where you can still get a massive profit margin, where people will still be excited to buy from you, and you can still be doing it for a little while. Again, like I say, surveillance systems, access control systems, this is one of the things that I think would be really good for you guys. So yeah, there you go. Oh. So with that, been blathering on about access control systems for about